Would you like to introduce, please?
Yeah, sure. Just a bit. Do you want to start off with a prayer?
Yes, okay.
And just to let everybody know, this session has been recorded, and the session will be put on Facebook, on our website as well. So just to make sure and just to let you all know. Thank you. Just a bit, over to yourself.
Namaste. Thank you. Jai Shri Krishna. I welcome you all. We start with the prayers. Asatyo maheti prabhu paramasate tum leija undayandareti prabhu paramate je tum leija mahamrutyu mati amruta samipe nata leija tuhino chuto tuja darashana dana deija asatyo maheti Prabhu Paramasate Tunleja. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Shri Krishna to everybody. Over to you.
Sub Abhinandan today on Bharat's 73rd Republic Day. Today we have Dr. Harish G Mistry, who will present to us what is dementia, what are the signs, what are the effects of dementia, and is there a cure? Dr. Harish Mistry is a qualified doctor. He qualified as a doctor in 1981 at the University College of London. Dr. Harish Mistry also teaches, interviews, and examines medical students at 3 London medical schools and carries out work for the Royal College of GPs. As I mentioned earlier, today is the 73rd Republic Day of India, a day when Bharat, or as we say, or some of us will say, India, established its own constitution and became a sovereign state. On this day in 1930, Bharat declared complete independence from colonial rule. And the question always arises in my mind, are we free from the colonial mindset? Today, I and SPA UK salute our freedom fighters who gave their life for our motherland. So today we just think about, obviously, our motherland, our ancestral roots, and just pray that those who gave their life for our motherland are you know, they are looking at Mani Shanti Mali. But further to do, Harish Bhai, I'll pass it over to yourself.
Thank you. Kamlesh, we've just put the first slide up. Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. My talk today will be on dementia, what I see as a GP and have seen as a GP for the last 35 years in general practice here in London. But there are my views, and I'll sort of mix it up with Gujarati, because my Gujarati is not the strongest, but it's okay-ish, I think. It helps me in my consultations. Anyway, dementia. Okay, when people hear the word dementia, I mean, what sounds like dementia future? Next slide. Dementia ma तुम्हारे कहीं worries करने की जरूरत नहीं हो रहा है, because a dementia થાય છે માણસોને એ disease નથી, પણ body માં disintegration થાય છે તમારા brain માં. Okay, એ disintegration થશે એટલે તમે એકલા નથી. Okay, આ country માં 67 million people છે, એમાંથી about 1 million people ને dementia છે, અને દરરોજ 600 માણસને dementia થાય છે. Next slide. 600 people a day are diagnosed every day in this country to have dementia. બૈરાઓને જરાક વધારે થાય છે માણસો કરતા. અને એ dementia diagnosis કરે એ પહેલા તમારે પાસે ડોક્ટર પાસે જવા પડે. ઓકે, હું તમને કહીશ પહેલા કે dementia ની સાઇન્સ શું હોય છે. Next slide, please. So dementia છે ને is not normal. તમે ઉંમર થાય એ normal છે. dementia માં એમ થાય છે કે તમારી body, brain સરખું કામ નથી કરતું. all right? So that's not normal. And it's તમને dementia થાય, તમારી ફેમિલીની કોઈને dementia થાય, it's nothing to be ashamed of, all right? It's a common disease. આ કન્ટ્રીમાં આપણે વધારે ઉંમરથી રહીએ છીએ હવે. નાની ઉંમરથી ઓફ થઈ જાય તો dementia નહીં થાય. કોઈકને થાય, but it's rare, okay? તો ઉંમરનો disease છે આ, okay? અને બીજી diseases આ dementia થાય છે. એટલે મેઇન પ્રોબ્લેમ આપણી કન્ટ્રીમાં આપણી એશિયન કમ્યુનિટીમાં છે કે આપણે મેન્ટલ હેલ્થની વાત નહીં કરશો, આપણે ડિમેન્શિયાની નહીં વાત કરશો, અને ઘણી જાતની આપણે ઇન્ડિયન કલ્ચરમાં આપણે વાત નહીં કરી શકીએ એવી, બીકોઝ બધા ગભરાઈ જાય કે મારી ફેમિલીનું નામ આવું થશે, મારી ફેમિલીનું નામ તેમ થશે. પણ ડિમેન્શિયા કોઈને થાય, it's not a disease, it's the way of life, because that's the way life will be for a dementia sufferer and for people around them, all right? So you have to be really careful how you say what dementia is, all right? And if you start seeing it as a disease, then you've lost your way and you lost the support of your person who's got dementia or people, all right? Next slide, yeah. So dementia is caused by many things, all right? And બધા causes નથી મેં લખ્યા. અંદર છે 200 different types of બોડીમાં નુક્સ થાય તેથી dementia થાય. 200, not 1, 2. અને common things આપણા બધાને થાય છે અત્યારે આ કન્ટ્રીમાં: diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, cholesterol, heart disease, strokes, Parkinson's disease, એવું થાય એનાથી બધાથી dementia થાય. Okay, so એ dementia એક જાત બીમારી નથી. એટલે આપણે એમ કહી શકીએ કે dementia, you are not suffering from dementia, but it's better to say you are living with dementia, all right? Because it makes you feel better, because you are suffering. એટલે તમને થાય બીમાર થાય છે, આ થાય છે, તે થાય છે, but you're not suffering. You have to live with dementia, okay? But don't be afraid, because really, I'll tell you, there is no real cure for this. There are some medicines, દવા વાપરી શકીએ, એનાથી જરાક સ્લો થઈ જાય dementia. But તમને પહેલા તમને કહું છું કે તમને 7 જાતની સિમ્પટમ થશે, ઓકે? તમને યાદ શક્તિ ઓછી થઈ જશે, તમને એકને એક વાત કરીએ, એટલે માણસો કેમ લવારો કરે એવી એકને એક વાત કર્યા કરશે. કમ્યુનિકેશન, એટલે વાત સરખી ના કરી શકે, ઊંધી વાત કરે. I'll give you an example. મારા ફાધરને ડિમેન્શિયા થયું હતું અને 1988માં, more than 12-13 years before he passed away, the first sign I saw of dementia, અમે ઇન્ડિયામાં હતા ને એ કહેતા હતા, we are traveling from Kenya. So because you see, father went from India to Kenya to England, but we traveled from England to India. And I knew, why is he talking about Kenya thi aiva? When he old memory આવી ગઈ હતી, but નવી memory, like living in England, was failing. So I knew in 1988 that he had early signs of dementia. All right. So it's and communication. But બીજી problem થાય છે માણસોને કે ઘણીવાર ઘર આવતા આવતા ગુમ થઈ જાય, રસ્તામાં ગુમ થઈ જાય. હું તમને કેસ બચું કેસ બધા માણસોની પર્સનાલિટી ચેન્જ થાય છે. અગેન મારા ફાધરની એક્સપિરિયન્સ, માણસો રસ્તામાંથી કોઈ પકડતો નતા. એના ઘરમાં હું જતો વેમ્બલીમાં, એના ડ્રોવરમાં રબર બેન્ડ મળતા, એટલા રબર બેન્ડ મળતા કે આ પોસ્ટમેન આવે ને સવારના, એના ઓલા લેટર્સ રેપ કરે ને ફગાવી દે નીચે, તો મારા ફાધર બધા પિક કરી આપતા એ રબર બેન્ડ, અને ડ્રોવરના રબર બેન્ડ મળતા ત્યાં. ઓકે, અને પછી કન્ફ્યુઝન થઈ જાય, એને યાદ ના રહી કે ક્યાં જાય છે ને શું કરે. અગેન માય ફાધર બસમાં ગુમ થઈ જતા, ટ્રેનમાં ગુમ થઈ જતા. ઓકે, સો ધીઝ આર થિંગ્સ ધેટ હેપન. અને ઘણીક વાર બિહેવિયર થાય, તે ઘણા માણસોને બિહેવિયર એવું થાય કે ડિપ્રેશન થઈ જાય, રડે. ઘણા માણસો અગ્રેસિવ થઈ જાય, મારજોડે કરે, ફેમિલીમાં. મારા પેશન્ટ્સ એવા કરે છે, એમાંથી એ બીમારી થાય. ઓકે, તો મેં તમને કીધું કે આ તમારી આટલા કોમન થિંગ્સ છે. નેક્સ્ટ સ્લાઇડ. સો ફર્ગેટફુલ છે, આપણે ઘણી વખતે બધા ભૂલી જશો. ઓકે, તમે ભૂલી જશો, હું પણ ભૂલી જશો. ઘણી વાર રશમાં હોય તો આપણી ચાવી નહીં મળે, આપણે બુક મૂકીએ તો બુક નહીં મળે. અને ઘણી વાર સુપરમાર્કેટમાં હું પણ ભૂલી જાઉં, બ્રેડ ભૂલી જાઉં, વાઇફ કે બ્રેડ લઈ આવજો, મિલ્ક લઈ આવજો, પણ લેવા જાય તો કોઈ વાર આવે જ. That's not dementia. This is normal. We all get sometimes કે forgetful થઈ જાય. Next slide, okay? But forget થાય ડિમેન્શિયામાં, so it happens regularly, all right? It's not one off કે ભૂલી જાઓ છો તમે. તમારું નામ ભૂલી જશે, તમે ક્યાંથી આવો છો, માણસોના ફેસીસ, ક્યાંક જવાનું હોય ત્યાં ભૂલી જશે. એટલે જૂની મેમરી ઓરાઈટ હશે. તમને ફાધરને કે તમને કોઈને ડિમેન્શિયા થયો હશે, તમે કહેશો કે 1940 માં શું થયું બધું કહી દેશે, પણ તમે કહેશો કે ગઈકાલે શું સવારના બ્રેકફાસ્ટ કર્યું હતું એ ખબર નહીં પડે. એ લોકો ક્યાં બેઠા છે, શું છે, ટાઈમ છે એ પણ નહીં ખબર. ઓકે, અને રેગ્યુલરલી એ લોકોની આઈટમ્સ મૂકી હોય ને ગુમ કરી નાખશે. નેક્સ્ટ સ્લાઇડ છે. સો એ લોકોને જ્યારે માણસોને ડિમેન્શિયા થાય, તમારી ફેમિલીમાં કોઈ મેમ્બર હોય, એકને એક સવાલ પૂછે, આવી ગયા ઘરે, આવી ગયા ઘરે, આવી ગયા ઘરે, નથી આવી ગયા, નથી આવી ગયા, કેટલા વાગે જવાનું છે, કેટલા વાગે, એવું પૂછ્યા રાખો રેગ્યુલરલી. that may be an early sign of dementia. એક વસ્તુની ડિસિઝન નહીં મેકિંગ એ લોકો કરી શકે. અને મેઇન જે આપણા નેક્સ્ટ સ્લાઇડ છે, ઘણી વાર ડિમેન્શિયા એવું પ્રોગ્રેસ થાય કે માણસ can't say things clearly, અને બીજા સમજ નહીં પડી શકે. એટલે એના મોઢામાંથી શું કહે વર્ડ્સ નીકળે એ ખોટા વર્ડ્સ, મિસઇન્ટરપ્રિટેશન થાય અને ખોટા વર્ડ્સ. એમાં જે માણસને નહીં ડિમેન્શિયા અને એ લોકો સાંભળતા હોય એ લોકોને લાગે આ માણસ શું થઈ ગયા, આ મેડ થઈ ગયા છે કે કેમ. બટ દેટ્સ ધ લાસ્ટ થિંગ તમારે કહેવાનું કે તમને મગજમાં શું થાય છે, બીકોઝ દેટ્સ અ પ્રોબ્લેમ. એ માણસને જેને ડિમેન્શિયા હોય એ સમજ નહીં પડે એ લોકોને. અને એ ડિમેન્શિયામાં મેં તમને કીધું કે આ મેમરી જાય છે, તમારી મેમરી ફેલિંગ થાય, લોકો રીઝનિંગ નહીં કરી શકો, ઘરે ક્યાંક જવું હોય જજમેન્ટ નહીં કરી શકો. ચાલવા ગયા હોય તો કેટલું ઊંચું છે, કેટલું નીચું છે, કેટલી ગાજી છે, કેટલી સ્ટેપ્સ છે. એટલે ઘણી વાર છે ને જે માણસને ડિમેન્શિયા થાય તે ગાજી ઉપર પડશે, રસ્તામાં પડી જશે, ખબર નહીં પડશે એ લોકોને. એ લોકોની જજમેન્ટ ઓછી હોય. ઓકે, અને એટલી જ મેમરી નથી જતી, એમાં મૂડ ચેન્જ થઈ જાય છે. એટલે બીજી સેન્સીસ જતી રહે, તમારી મૂડ જતી રહે, ઘણીક વાર એંગ્રી થઈ જાય. અને ઘણીક વાર બેઠા બેઠા એ લોકોને ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ પણ ના લાગે. ઘરમાં બેઠા હોય, ટીવી જોયા રાખીએ, બુક કે પેપર ખોલ્યું હોય તો એક જ પેજ ઉપર હોય, બુક ઊંધી પકડેલી હોય ઘણીક વાર. ઓકે, અને બીજી અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડિંગમાં ન હોય ઘણીક વાર કે ક્યાં કે હેપી હોય, સેડનેસ હોય, રડતા હોય, એ પણ બધી ઇમોશન્સ હોય ને એ પણ જતી રહે. પણ બીજી સેન્સીસ જતી રહી. એમાં હું તમને કહું છું કે ઘણીક વાર લોકોને આ મોઢામાં આપણે ચાય ને કોફી ને એવું બધું પીએ ગરમ ગરમ, એ ગરમ ગરમની એ લોકોની સેન્સ જતી રહે. એટલે મોઢામાં બળી જાય. આ હોટ વોટર બોટલ એ લોકો લેપ્સ પર મૂકે કે બરદામાં દુખે તો એ લોકો હોટ વોટર બોટલ વાપરીએ ને, ગરમ પાણીની બોટલ, એનાથી ચામડી બળી જાય. એટલે એવી રીતના રેગ્યુલરલી થતું હોય, એની તમારી સાઇન્સ હોય કે આમાં કંઈ થાય છે. તો seven main symptoms હોય છે કે difficulty to remember things, repetition, communication problem, getting lost, personality change, confusion about time and place. લોકોને ખબર ના પડે કે આજે અત્યારે શું. અત્યારે તમને કોઈ બધાને પૂછો કે સાંજના 9 થી 10, 8 થી 9 ના ગારામાં છે, એ લોકો ડિમેન્શિયા વાળા માણસને પૂછશે તો ખબર નહીં પડશે, તો સવારનું કહી દેશે, ગઈકાલનું કહી દેશે. એ લોકોને ખબર નહીં પડશે કે આજે બુધવાર થયો છે, એ લોકો બીજો દિવસ આપશે. કહેશે નહીં કે નાઇરોબીમાં છે કે ક્યાં છે, વેમ્બલીમાં છે કે લંડન છે, બધું ઊંધું થઈ જશે અને કોઈ વાર બિહેવિયર ખરાબ થશે. ઓકે, તો શું કરી શકો તમે? ઓકે, નેક્સ્ટ સ્લાઇડ પ્લીઝ. સો જે સિમ્પટમ્સ ડિમેન્શિયા થાય, ઇટ્સ યુઝલી પ્રોગ્રેસિવ, એટલે આસ્તે આસ્તે વધશે, સ્પીચમાં જતું રહેશે. અને એ જ્યારે કહે છે એ વાત કરશો ડિમેન્શિયા વાળા માણસો, બધી મિસઅન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડિંગ થઈ જશે તમારાથી. અને એ મિસઅન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડિંગ આપણે જેને આપણાને કંઈ ડિમેન્શિયા ના હોય, નહીં સમજ પડતી કે ડિમેન્શિયા શું છે, તો આપણે જરા ખીજવાઈ જાઓ કે આમ શું કહે છે, આજ કાનું લવાળ કરો, કેમ કરો છો, સરખું બોલો. અને ફેમિલીમાં સાથે રહેતા હોય આપણે એશિયન ફેમિલીમાં, તો એમાં ઇટ કેન કોઝ ટેન્શન, ડિફિકલ્ટી. ઓકે, ખાવામાં પછી ડિફિકલ્ટી થશે, ડ્રિંકિંગમાં. આઈલ ગીવ યુ એન એક્ઝામ્પલ. મારા ફાધર લોકો નીચે જ બેઠા હતા આ ઘરમાં જ, બેઠા હોય સોફા ઉપર, બિયર આપતા, તો અડધો ગ્લાસ બિયર પહેરતા અને અડધો ગ્લાસ ફ્લોર ઉપર ધોરી નાખતા. Now you can't tell him કે નહીં ધોરો, okay, because he doesn't know that. All right, અને આસ્તે આસ્તે ઘણા માણસો પોતાની હાઇજીન એટલે બાથ નહીં કરે, ક્લોઝ ના ચેન્જ કરે, અને ઘણીક વાર ટોયલેટ ને પિશાબની પ્રોબ્લેમ થઈ જાય. ઇન્કોન્ટિનન્સ એટલે ટોયલેટ જતી રહે, પિશાબ જતી રહે, આસ્તે આસ્તે. તરત ના થાય પણ મોટી ઉંમરે થાય જરાક. ઓકે, નેક્સ્ટ સ્લાઇડ કેમ. માણસો પૂછે કે આ ડિમેન્શિયા ક્યોર કરી શકો? Now there is no cure sadly. Okay, પણ દવા હોય છે. ઓકે, પણ મેં તમને પહેલા કીધું હતું કે કોઈને ડાયાબિટીસ હોય, હાર્ટ ડિઝીઝ હોય, થાઇરોઇડ ડિઝીઝ હોય, એ બધું હોય, એ તમે જેમ બને તેમ સારો કંટ્રોલ કરો. સવારના અહીંયા કેન્ટનમાં અહીંયા હેરોમાં છે એક પ્રદીપ કરીને સ્વીટ પોઈન્ટ છે, તમે સવારના જાઓ ત્યાં 9 વાગે રવિવારે લાઈન ને લાઈન 100 મીટરની લાઈન લાગેલી પ્રદીપ બહુ ફાઇન જલેબી બનાવે છે અને ડાયાબિટીસ હોય તો જલેબી ખાવાની બંધ કરો, બ્રેડ બંધ કરો, રાઈસ બંધ કરો, ઓકે, કાર્બોહાઈડ્રેટ્સ કે છે એ બધું બંધ કરો. હાર્ટ ડિઝીઝ હોય તો કોલેસ્ટ્રોલ ને એ બધું ઓછું કરવા પડે. સિગરેટ પીતા હોય તો સિગરેટ ઓછી કરી નાખો. ઓકે, નાઉ નેક્સ્ટ સ્લાઇડ પ્લીઝ. Okay, so first of all, તમને કેવી રીતના ડિમેન્શિયા પ્રિન્ટ લુક આફ્ટર યોરસેલ્ફ. આ બધા ડિઝીઝીસ ત્યાં હોય તે કાળજી રાખો. ઓકે, તમે ડોક્ટર પાસે જવાનું પૂછો, તમને એને કહેશે નંબર, આ ડાયાબિટીસ તમારો કંટ્રોલ છે, હિમોગ્લોબિન A1c એટલે કે 3 મહિનાનો શુગર કેટલું છે. ઓકે, અને તમારો હાઈ ફિગર હોય 50 થી 55 થી હાઈ, એનો મીનિંગ કે ડાયાબિટીસ કંટ્રોલમાં નથી. બ્લડ પ્રેશર કંટ્રોલ કરો, કોલેસ્ટ્રોલ કંટ્રોલ કરો. નંબર્સ હોય ને તમારા જીપી ને પૂછવાનો કે તમારા નર્સ ને પૂછવાનું કે શું છે, તો તમે કાળજી કરી શકો. જો કાળજી નહીં કરશો તો તમારો બોડીમાં નુક્સ થશે. ડિમેન્શિયા ઇઝ અ પોસિબિલિટી. અને આ કન્ટ્રી આજે અત્યારે વિપુલભાઈ કીધું કે ધીસ ઇઝ ધ 73rd એનિવર્સરી. આ કન્ટ્રીમાં 1 in 70 people get dementia. તો આજે આપણે ગ્રુપમાં છે 260 માણસો. આ ગ્રુપમાં જે સાંભળતા હશે એમાં divide that by 70, so we'll get about 4 or 5 people will get dementia. All right, so they'll get it. So be careful, look after yourself. All right, now pela our symptoms hoy the first port of call is go to the GP. I mean GP પાસે જશો તો GP તમને પહેલા પૂછશે કે શું છે. ના તમારો ફાધર મધર આંટ જે લઈ જાઓ એ તમને GP પાસે જાઓ તો કદાચ પ્રોપર આન્સર નહીં આપશે. મને તો સારું છે, મને તો સારું છે ભાઈ, મને વિટામિન આપશો કે વિટામિન ડી આપશો તો સારું થઈ જશે, પણ નહીં સારું થાય. પણ તમે જાઓ સાથે તો એક્સપ્લેન કરવાનો જીપી ને કે ભૂલી જાય છે, ગુમ થઈ જાય છે, નામ નથી યાદ, પર્સનાલિટી ચેન્જ થઈ, બધું થશે. ઓકે, એવું થાય then the GP will take a full history, પછી એક્ઝામિન કરશે. ઓકે, અને પછી જોશે કે બીજું શું છે પ્રોબ્લેમ, કે આ માણસને શું આલ્કોહોલનો પ્રોબ્લેમ છે, ડિપ્રેશનનો પ્રોબ્લેમ છે, કે બ્રેનમાં કંઈ ઇન્જરી થઈ છે. કોઈ માણસને સ્ટ્રોક લાગેલો હોય, કોઈ ગાજી ઉપર પડી ગયો માથામાં લાગ્યું હોય, કોઈ માણસને ઇન્ફેક્શન થાય ને બોડીમાં શું કે ડિલેરિયમ એટલે કન્ફ્યુઝન થઈ જાય, કોઈ માણસને કિડની ફેલિયર હોય, લીવર ફેલિયર હોય, થાઇરોઇડ ફેલિયર હોય. અને ઘણીક વાર અમે જીપીસ દવા આપે છે, દવાથી એ નુકસ થાય બોડીને, એના કન્ફ્યુઝન એટલું થઈ જાય. સ્પેશિયલી ડ્રગ્સ, ડિપ્રેશનના ડ્રગ્સ કે પેલી શું કે એન્ઝાયટીના ડ્રગ્સ, વિચાર ગભરામણ થતી એની દવા ડાયઝેપામ વેલિયમ ને આપીએ, એનાથી એ કન્ફ્યુઝન થાય. અને ઘણીક વાર થાય છે ડિફિશિયન્સી ઓફ વિટામિન્સ, વિટામિન B12, વિટામિન ડી, એનાથી એ કન્ફ્યુઝન થાય. સો જીપી તમને પહેલા હિસ્ટ્રી લેશે, એક્ઝામિન કરશે, બધું બ્લડ પ્રેશર અને બ્લડ ટેસ્ટ કરશે. એમાંથી સિમ્પલ ટેસ્ટ હોય, થાઇરોઇડ કે આયર્ન ડિફિશિયન્સી કે વિટામિન, એ ટ્રીટ કરશે. એનાથી સારું થઈ જાય, વેલ એન્ડ ગુડ, સારું તો. ઓકે, પણ જો જીપી તમને કહે કે યસ ધીસ ઇઝ ડિમેન્શિયા, એ લોકો બીજા વધારે ટેસ્ટ કરશે. ઓકે, અને યુઝલી જીપી સર્જરીમાં અમે 2 જાતના ટેસ્ટ કરીએ. એમાં 30 ક્વેશ્ચન પૂછીએ, સિમ્પલ ક્વેશ્ચન કે તમે ક્યાં રહો છો, તમારો એડ્રેસ શું છે, ટેલિફોન નંબર શું, જન્મ તારીખ શું છે, આજે શું વાર છે, સવાર છે, બપોર છે, 1-2 ડ્રોઈંગ કરાવશું અને ફોટોગ્રાફ આપશું. જરા કદાચ શું કે વાઘનો ફોટો કે શું છે આ, એ ઘણી વાર ખબર નહીં પડે, ડિમેન્શિયા થઈ ગયો કે આ વાઘ નથી, આ તો કૂતરો છે, એવા કન્ફ્યુઝન થઈ જાય. ડ્રોઈંગ કરાવશું, એમાંથી ખબર પડશે 30 ક્વેશ્ચનમાં કે આ માણસને ડિમેન્શિયા છે કે નહીં. પછી વધારે થાય તો પછી અમે સ્પેશિયલિસ્ટને રિફર કરી શકીએ, પણ એ સ્પેશિયલિસ્ટ કદાચ બ્રેન સ્કેન કરે. બટ યુઝલી બાય ધેટ ટાઈમ everything is sorted out. Dementia થાય, it's either going to progress, it's not going to stay the same. Consultant હશે એ લોકો તમને કહેશે કે આ દવા ટ્રાય કરીએ. 2 જાતની દવા આવે છે, બટ એ તમને ડિમેન્શિયા જરાક સ્લો કરી નાખે, કમ્પ્લીટલી ટ્રીટ નહીં કરે. Okay, it just slows the progress for 1 or 2 years and then you get more dementia. All right, so what can you do as a family? So first of all, my family member hoy, you have to show them love, you have to support them, ખાવાનું આપવાનું, ફૂડ આપવાનું, sheltering, and understand the person કે આ શું થાય છે, કેમ થાય છે. એની સાથે ખીજવાનું નહીં અને શાઉટિંગ નહીં કરવાનું, because એ કરશો તો કન્ફ્યુઝન વધારે થઈ જશે માણસો ડિમેન્શિયામાં. So first of all, તમે what you can do કે તમને પ્રોબ્લેમ થાય આવો કે memory જતી હોય કે એક બે જણાને હશે આ ગ્રુપમાં આજે તો તમે શું કરી શકો ફર્સ્ટ ઓફ ઓલ તમારે જે પ્રોબ્લેમ હોય ડાયાબિટીસ એ કંટ્રોલ કરો તમારા જીપી ને મળો 1 કે 2 વર્ષ ઓકે બ્લડ પ્રેશર મશીન ને બાય કરી શકો તમે ગૂગલ માં જાઓ ને એમેઝોન માં 25 પાઉન્ડ નું મળે ગુડ મશીન આવે છે સિગરેટ નહીં પીવો આલ્કોહોલ બંધ કરો કે ઓછું કરી નાખો ઓકે આલ્કોહોલ કેટલું પીવાનું કોઈને ખબર છે વીકનું આલ્કોહોલ કેટલું કહે છે લોકો એનીવન માઇક્રોફોન ઓન કરી નાખજો how much alcohol is normal for a week
1 unit
1 unit okay nothing 1 unit is nothing મોટું ટીન આવતું એક મોટું ટીન હોય 1. Foster's routine 1.8 unit. Right?
yeah
So 1 unit is half a pint, and a week no 12 units થી વધારે નહીં પીવાનું એટલે 6 pint થી વધારે નહીં પીવાનું એક પબનો whiskey નો shot gin and tonic નો shot is 1 unit. All right. તો તમારાથી વધારે પીતો હોય બે સાંજના આવીને કામેથી બહુ બિઝી હતા થાક ત્રણેક મોટા ટીન પીઓ you're drinking too much. You're not helping yourself, not only for your brain but also for your diabetes, your heart, your cholesterol and everything else. Okay. ખાવાનું સારું ખાવાનું ઘણા વેજીટેરિયન છે પણ ઘણું તેલ ખાશો ફ્રાઈડ ફૂડ ખાશો સમોસા ભજીયા તળેલા પાપડ તળેલી રોટલી પૂરી કાળજી રાખજો એક્સરસાઇઝ કરજો અને બીજું શું કરી શકો તમને ભૂલી જતા હોય તો તમે એક્સરસાઇઝ ધ બ્રેઇન પેલા પઝલ્સ કરો વર્ડ પઝલ્સ ક્રોસવર્ડ કરતું હોય ઓકે ફોટોઝ તમારા જૂના આલ્બમ હોય તો કોઈ જોવાનું કે આ શું છે કોઈ નહીં ખબર હોય તો પૂછો તમારા ફેમિલીઝને ઓકે તમે ઘરે બેસીને ઓલી બોલિવૂડ ફિલ્મ જોયા રાખશે અમિતાભ બચ્ચન કે કોણ અત્યારે સ્ટાર હોય શાહરુખ ખાન that's not good because તમે બેસીને સ્ટેર કરશો and most of the films are not real. All right, there are some films that are real but they're not real, they're just fantasy. So be very careful to sit in front of the television or radio without thinking. And get regular medical care. All right, and બીજું કરવાનું હોય છે તમે make sure, and this is very close to my heart, is when મારા father ને જ્યારે dementia થયો હતો I was letting him do as much as he can in his own house at his own pace અને જ્યાં તો ખાવાનું લઈ જતો twice a day, lunchtime, evening, but there was એક વાર સમાજમાં ગયા તો કે હરીશ એના father ને abuse કરે છે. This is a common complaint from people who don't understand what dementia is. One of the things you have to do is to let people do their own life, give them the independence, because the more they do, the slower the deterioration is in the brain, the slower the deterioration in the brain. So, like Courtney zip up there, let them learn, all right? It's not cruel. It's letting them learn how to do the zip up. Zip Courtney karso, you are making them disabled. All right, so don't make your relatives disabled. Let them do it as much as they can. If they really struggle, then help. Next slide, please. Okay. Right, that's different. Okay, so do those things. So if they're forgetting, ઘણી વાર ખબર ના પડે કે કાલે સવારે ડોક્ટરની અપોઇન્ટમેન્ટ છે એને અલાર્મ આપો બધા ફોન વાપરી શકશો આઈપેડ નકર ઘરમાં અલાર્મ રાખો કે ફોન રિંગ કરે કે તમારા અલાર્મ રિંગ કરે વોલ ઉપર લિસ્ટ લખો ઓકે અને ઘણા માણસો ખબર પડે એટલે ઘરમાં કે એના કબડમાં કપડા ક્યાં રાખ્યા છે સામાન ક્યાં રાખ્યો છે well label the doors, put clothes, night clothes, towels, pajamas, toilet rolls in cupboards. દરવાજા પર લખી દો એટલે માણસ જેને dementia થાય તે ખબર પડે. It looks silly but really for the person with dementia તમે સાથે રહેતા હોય it helps them. All right, my father when he was getting lost, he used to be brought home by ambulance and police, but મને ખબર હતી એક પોકેટમાં કોટના પોકેટ ટ્રાઉઝરના પોકેટ વોલેટ ની સ્પેસમાં મારું એડ્રેસ મારું ફોન નંબર and everything હતું એટલે ઘણી વાર ફોન આવતા from the police and ambulance people go, we found your father in the park, we found him on the St. George's roundabout, etc. So make sure you look after them, put things like that. So we talked about the senses, the hot and cold. People get burnt in the mouth, they get burnt on the skin, and sometimes dementia થાય they can't put 2 and 2 together. ઘણી આપણે black mat હોય રસ્તામાં કે દરવાજાની entrance માં They don't see it as a black net. They get confused. They think there's a hole in there. All right. So you have confusion type. And remember the routine, because they'll go daroj je sarku karta hai ke sawana 6 vage ute, brush kare, chai piye, nasto kare. Let them do it. Okay. But sometimes, they'll get up earlier and earlier. 6 vage utta hai to 5 vage ut se 4 vage. Then it becomes a problem. And then you'll need to get help. All right. Now, there are two issues that will rise, because that one issue is that there's a problem for the carers, right? So tame sathe rehta hai, family sathe, it becomes a stress. All right, all living together, it becomes a stress, because we have what we call a nuclear family in the Indian culture, that we all live together. Things are changing, people live separately now. But if you've got young children and a person with dementia lives in the house, it can cause quite a lot of stress. All right, there may be frustration, there may be a financial burden. Nappies perta hoy, kapda bagarta hoy, clean કરવાનું હોય, ઘણી વાર એ લોકો નેપીસ કરે તો ટોયલેટ ની અંદર નેપીસ નાખી દે, બ્લોકેજ કરવા પડે, ક્લિયર કરવા પડે. So you have to be careful with that. But there is a family stress. All right. Now, if they get dementia, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, you have to be very careful about driving. Okay, they cannot drive once they've got dementia. If it's very mild, they can drive, but if it's a quite severe, moderate to severe dementia, they mustn't drive, because their insurance is invalid. They look over the car crash karse, the payment pe jase, that you'll have to pay for life if someone gets injured. All right. So once they got a dementia thing, you have to, if you tell them to do, call the DVLA, the driving people, or tame jate ele phone kari sake. Amari પાસે ઘણી વાર માણસ આવે તો અમે પણ માણસને શોપ કરશું કે DVLA ને કહેશું કે આ માણસને dementia છે, લાયસન્સ લઈ લો. તમે શું કરી શકો? ઘરેથી તમારી ચાવી લઈ શકો, ગાડીની ચાવી સંતાવી દેવો, એવું કરો તો it will be helpful, especially if they've got severe dementia. Generally, બધાને dementia aste aste progression માં જશે. All right, it will go towards the end. All right, it gets worse. So first of all, you can either care for them at home by adopting the home. મેં તમને કીધું bathroom કરીશો, cupboardમાં રાખો, rails રાખો, ચાલે. But as it can be very stressful. Now, ઘણી વાર long-term care, there comes a time, even with my father, it came a time when I could not possibly do 24 hours care. We were waking up at 4 in the morning, giving a bath, and putting to bed at 11 o'clock at night, giving a bath again, having had 2 or 3 baths in the day. It can cause family stress. And it may be that you may well have to think about putting your relative, your loved ones, in a long-term care in a home. There's nothing shameful about that, all right? Because if you don't do that, what will happen is some people will get so angry and may sometimes hit the old person, and that is very serious. All right, our country, it is very, very serious. The adult safeguarding team will get involved, and the police may get involved. All right, so be very, very careful about hitting an elderly person. Get away from there, get help, speak to the doctor, speak to the social services. All right. And they, when my father was very stressed, I got a friend of mine who was a consultant to get him into hospital for 2 weeks, just to diffuse the situation. All right. So that has to happen. All right. Next slide, please. So if you think about care homes, all right, these are not cheap. All right. There are 2 different types of care homes where they go. Well, there's another third one. It's called the EMI, elderly and mentally infirm. But the 2 basic ones are residential home and a nursing home. A private nursing home can cost, in London here, £1,000 to £2,000 a week, and someone has to pay it. Either the person who has got ill, or the family, or the state has to pay. Or there are the state homes, the council homes, which are in London at the moment about 800 to 1,500 a week, but there's lots of waiting list. All right. Next slide, please. Now, all of these care homes have to be assessed by the council first, right? You don't do the assessment. You get a social worker, and the social worker will take all the information about the dementia. Keviti care joye છે. તે લોકો ઘણી જાતની different cares હોય. Day care માં લઈ શકે, full-time care લઈ શકે in a home. But they will also ask for a financial assessment. Now, મારી પાસે આવ્યા હતા ત્યારે they asked firstly for a financial assessment. The મેં તરત જ કહી દીધું કે that's not the assessment we want. What we want is an assessment of the needs of this person with dementia. આ માણસને dementia થયો છે, એના needs શું છે? ટોયલેટમાં જવાની needs છે, walking ના needs છે, eyesight ની needs છે. એ needs શું છે એ પહેલા assessment કરવાનું. Next slide, please. After they've done that, then they'll do a financial assessment. You don't want the financial assessment, number one, all right? You do the needs assessment. What are the needs for this old person? Now, the council have their own accountants, and they'll come and take all the issues about the financial state of an old person. So if they have over, at the moment, this is the, I think this is the national, if they have 23,250 in their bank or building society, until they come down, so if they got 100,000, then they have to pay for their needs, all right? In the bank, if they got £100,000, but sadly, you have to pay for it. The government is not going to pay for you until you get to £23,250. Then there is a formula, all right? So if you got between 14,000 and 23,000, there's a formula where the council pays so much, and you, for every pound, you pay X amount, you know, and then less than 14,000, there is, you no longer have to pay this tariff on your capital, all right? Now, it is possible that the council will make you sell that house, all right? It is possible. What you can't do is suddenly transfer the house in your name, because you will be caught out by social services and the council in the later say. Next slide, please. So long-term planning, okay? So koine dementia theo my family mom. So make sure, first of all, as they're progressing, that they have made a will. Now, I suggest you don't go yourself, because there'll be arguments in the family. Kem will all right, there'll be argument. And you want something called a lasting power of attorney for two things. One is for their health. Dementia decision na making karo. So tamare a local advocate rakse tamare any lasting power ke mara chokro, my health will look at my father every lasting power and his finances, all right? So you can look after his finances, but be careful not to dip in anyone's finances, because again, if you get caught, there's always a case every day somewhere where the relatives are dipping into their finances, but you can't do that because you're contravening the Mental Health Act and the Disability Acts and things, all right? Next slide, please. So this is the really hard ones, okay? We're coming to the end of the talk and we'll have questions in a minute. Right at the end of the life, the doctor or the nurse will discuss with you and the patient. The patient, dementia theory, capacity or mind man, and it puts say, આ માણસને એટલી બીમારી થાય છે અને ત્યાં collapse થઈ જાય અમે resuscitation કરશું કે નહીં કરશું. So all of you, you know, if you're over the age of 50, 60, think of it. Do you want resuscitation or don't you want resuscitation? Discuss it with the family, discuss it with the doctor, and make sure the record is kept in the doctor's records. What is your choice? It's not anyone else's choice. At the end of my mind, make a choice now, but you can change it tomorrow. Okay? You can change it tomorrow. It's not ekwa lakho tame ke mane resuscitation nathi karvu 5 દિવસ પછી તમને resuscitation કરવું છે, you can change your mind. But you know, if it's really bad, like ઘણા માણસને cancer થાય, dementia થાય, stroke થાય, બોલી નહીં શકે, you know, you have to decide ke, do you want that patient to go into the hospital with all those drips and things running there, sitting on ITU? There's no quality of life, etc. Next slide, please. So these are some sort of resources. I put Alzheimer's Society rather than Dementia UK, but you can, if you Google Dementia UK, that's just as good a site, all right? Alzheimer's, the reason I put Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's disease is slightly different in the sense that it can start in a young age, under the age of 60. You know, people are doing. So there's that, there's what do you call it? Dementia UK, there's a lot of information there, all right? And yeah, like in London, we've got lots of organization in Northwest London where we put people into touch with, to help them. And the other important phone number is the Admiral nurses. In like bo kharab hoy dementia, they'll go rapna avina garma pan rese. Okay, look, I've done enough of the talking. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you for listening. But, fire away with the questions. I'm quite happy to answer them, English and Gujarati. Either if you turn your mute off and speak, I'm quite happy to answer those questions.
Hello, Harish. This is Praveen Mistry, your next door neighbor from Rosemead Avenue.
Hi, Praveen. Bhai. Milton Keynes.
Milton Keynes, yes. Question for you: Is dementia, is it hereditary? If
Really good question, Praveen bhai. Dementia can be hereditary. So when I talk about Alzheimer's disease, there are some genetic component to it. All right. So if someone gets it at a young age, under the age of 60, there is a chance that that's genetic. All right. There are also certain other diseases. One of my aunts studied, and I'm sure one of my cousins here, they maybe might want to speak up, is a disease called Pick's disease. All right. That can be inherited. All right. And it's a different type of dementia. They get dementia at the front of the head here, in the frontal brain. Okay. And the people have different symptoms, like they eat food and they can't stop eating and they choke on it. There's another hereditary one, something called Lewy body disease. But as I said, there are 200 cases, but the basic one is if someone gets dementia at a young age, it is a chance that you'll get it. The old age dementia, so I suspect you're probably thinking from your own family history, as you get older, आपकी heart ni artery nadi narrow થઈ જાય. Yeah. We also get the same narrowing in the brain, especially if our blood pressure is not controlled, diabetes is not controlled, cholesterol is not controlled. The arteries get small. So a lot of people get what we call vascular dementia. Like oxygen and blood doesn't go to the brain. So that starts deteriorating the brain and the brain starts shrinking. All right. That's not hereditary. All right. We all get diseases because we live in a very affluent society here. It's not like India where we have to work very hard. We come home, have our food, chapatis, shark, rotli, bhajias, and we sit and watch television. We don't go for an exercise. All right. So I think that's important. Hope that answers that point.
yes, that's very helpful, Harish. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Any other questions, please?
Hello, Suresh Mistry. Yeah.
Hi, Suresh.
Hi. Is there a link between sleep apnea and dementia?
Sleep apnea. Did you say sleep apnea, Suresh?
Yes, sleep apnea.
Okay. So the people who don't know what sleep apnea is, that the weight વધારે હોય, nack block થઈ ગયો હોય, so they will snore at night. Okay, they'll go like this. All right, so they will snore. Then what happens is they'll stop snoring in the middle of the night. Any wife kaise, girlfriend kaise, boyfriend kaise, sutta hai, ye log kaise, ke they stop snoring. So they go like this. Suddenly wake up with snoring. A jara gap hoy jare snoring ne sleep the apnea at least swas nahi levo itla the longer the quiet period, the greater the risk of having a heart attack. All right, so a local doctor પાસે જશે, a local sleep study કરશે ને રાતના mask આપશે. Now if it's treated early, people will not get there. If they lose their weight, they won't get there. Sometimes they do an operation at the back of the throat, they won't get there. All right, but if they don't have it, then all those time, every time the long spell at night without the oxygen to the brain, it will certainly damage your brain, Suresh bhai. So if you have sleep apnea, if you've got a mask, wear it every night. It's uncomfortable, but wear it. It will also make you sleep better, and the next day will be fresher.
Okay, thank you.
Next one.
Harish bhai, so we've got a couple of questions in the chat, and Lakshmi Ben Mistry has raised her hand. So Lakshmi Ben, would you like to go first?
Thanks, Kamlesh, doing that. It's quite difficult coordinating with.
Okay, now.
Dr. Harish.
Mr. Mistry, Riverbank Primary School, Nairobi.
Yeah, of course you do. I'm sure. You can't forget me. Not
No.
very easily. Anyway. Let me ask, I got 2-3 questions, but I will only go for one question.
Yeah.
Memory. જે તમે વાત કરી, you go back and you remember lots of issues.
Yeah.
When you come to sort of recent, by which I mean a year or 2 or 3, you tend to forget it.
That's right.
And why does that happen? And what's the
So think about your life, right? So when you are the master of Standard 7 at Riverbank Primary School, okay, you were young. Okay, that memory is like a hard disk in your brain. It's stuck. You can remember that. All right. As you get older, I presume, as I'm, sort of approaching 65 in a couple of years' time, you must be a little bit older than me. So you must have approached 70 plus, I suspect. Okay. So
That's so kind.
disclosing your age in public, as you get older, your brain starts to shrink anyway. All right. This is just an aging process. Your heart shrinks, your brain shrinks, your kidney shrinks, your liver shrinks, everything ages, your skin will shrink. So the hard disk gets weaker in recent times. All right. It gets weaker. So the memory is not so stuck in your brain. It's very fragile. All right. It's like if you look at a bookshelf, it keep loading books. The books at the top will be very wobbly. All right. So that recent memory is very wobbly and that will fall off first. But the books at the bottom is your hard disk memory, and that will stay a long time. And that's why people lose simple memory. People with severe dementia, if they've got it today, they won't even know what they had for breakfast. All right. They won't even know what they had it 2 hours ago. So that's, I know you mentioned 2 years, but I can go as far as, people out, they won't even know what they ate for lunch today. Does that help?
Yes, Dr. Harish, that's true.
Okay. All right. Next one. Next figure.
Okay.
Yogesh is asking something, or Kamlesh?
Yeah, I'll just go from the top, Harish. So the first question was from Kunchaman. First question, it says, Dad has been told he has first stage dementia and can be controlled with exercise in the brain. Are there any recommendations on what exercises can be done?
Right. So I can tell, first of all, things like exercise in the brain is go outside and let them go for a walk. All right. If they can still do it. Okay. And ask them questions. Suju, sukayu. You can do things at home, such as puzzles, like word search, crossword, you can do things like that. The latest thing which my wife and my children are doing, something on Google called Wordle, W-O-R-D-L-E. It's a 5-letter word, 3 colors, and in 6 goes, you have to name that word. All right. Try it. It doesn't matter if you don't get it. Try it. All right. People do things like Sudoku. I don't know, Gujarati ma Sudoku, Kamlesh?
કરીએ છે ને ઓલું ક્રોસ ને આગળ ને એવી રીતના કરવાનું હોય વેનસડે ક્લબમાં બધા કરે છે હાલકોને નેક્સ્ટ વીક ગેમ રમાડશે ત્યારે ખબર પડશે જેને ના સડુકુ ખબર હોય ને એ નેક્સ્ટ વેનસડે મારું ક્લબ જોઈન થઈ જાય.
Okay, so do Sudoku.
આવે છે સડુકુ ગુજરાતીમાં આવે.
Gujarati, even better. All right, even better. Do Sudokus, puzzles, games. What did I write here? Thing to remember. Play cards. Group do group physiotherapy exercise. I've been to a Wednesday club before, and there's a lady who for the first half an hour does lots of exercises together. All right. Go and meet friends, meet relatives. Just because your dad or uncle or aunt is forgetful doesn't mean you lock them in the house. Go and meet them. The more you have communicated with people, it's the better it is. Yeah. Does that answer the question, Kamlesh? Who's the next one?
Yeah. Okay. This is from Debo Bruto Day. Hopefully I said the right name. How do I convince my mother to take medicine for dementia as she is resistant to taking more medication?
Okay, really good question. All right. So people are resistant to vaccines, as you know. People are resistant to taking tablets. Now, it depends how bad the dementia is. All right. So you can say to her, "Tame keso ko ke anti tamari yad shakti saru thase." Okay. Okay. Now, if she continues and if she's really bad, you can sometimes crush the tablets and put it in her shark and rotli, a jam sandwich, whatever she eats. All right. As long as she hasn't got diabetes, you can't have jam sandwich. Yeah. All right. So you can mix it with their food or something. It doesn't really matter. All right. Because it may give them 1 or 2 years of extra thinking ability. Now, some of you who are well-read and thinking about the law, you may think you're stepping on their liberty. Are you taking their liberty away by putting medications in their food? Well, the answer is yes. All right. But then, in a court of law, you could sort of say, look, if I hadn't given the medicine, their memory would have failed. All right. So different ways of doing it. All right. But the first thing is talking. All right. Best thing is to talk, get them on your side. You may say, look, you like your jalebi, have the tablets and I'll give you half a jalebi this week. All right, the diabetes might not be helped, but the dementia tablets would be in. Next question.
Okay. Namaste, Harish Bhai. Please, can you explain difference between Alzheimer's and dementias, subtle differences?
Right. So the differences in Alzheimer's. All right. So Alzheimer's is usually younger people. That's the first thing. All right. It's sometimes we use that term for dementia of the younger person. All right. But with Alzheimer's, the first thing to go is their memory. All right. They can't think, and their behavior may change. All right. The general memory fails. The reasoning fails. About reasoning is, you have to leave home half an hour before going to the doctors to beat the traffic. So they can't reason in their brain why they have to do that. So that's the vascular time. They can't plan. The judgment is failing, like last step in or the pavement curb, they don't know. So, there are subtle differences like that. But really, ultimately, it's just those sudden things I've said, failure to remember, repetition, communication. I wouldn't worry too much, although the doctor will say that's Alzheimer's. The other thing which Praveen Bhai brought up earlier, that someone at a young age, at the age of 40 or 50, starts getting Alzheimer's and they've been told it's Alzheimer's. It's very important that you all look after yourselves. Yeah. So help.
Okay, thank you. The next question looks more like a finance one. It says, can you have the same person for finance and health as your LPA? So let's find.
Yeah, that's a really good question. All right. So when we do the lasting power of attorney, it's a specific thing. All right. And there's an act, 2005 act called the Mental Capacity Act, MCA Act. All right. We have to go through the 5 facets of their act and determine that, is this person able to make, first of all, a decision about their health. All right. And we have to ask certain questions. And if they answer the right questions, we fill that in. I'd be the certificate giver. All right. And then I'll ask the same thing. You've got your house, you've got your money. All right. And I'll certify the giver. So I usually suggest, rather than one person, have a couple of people. All right. So if there are 2 or 3 children in the family or another responsible adult. Now, that's different to the will. All right. This is organizing their life, their finances, and their bricks and mortars, their house. All right. All right. So they can do that. All right. This is nothing to do with the will. The will is different. So if your father or your mother has made a will, and they leave a legacy to you as a child or uncle or whatever, you cannot witness his signature. All right. Now, when we do the lasting power of attorney, although you've got me giving as a certificate giver, medical certificate giver, you also need 1 or 2 other people to sign that they know person A and person B, who are in the named as the patient's advocate. All right. So you can do it, but you can do it for both. It's not a problem. But if they don't have a mental capacity, then unfortunately you have to then register them with the Office of Public Guardianship, and it's out of your hands then. That's why I think you should do that early, when they've got capacity.
Yes, we had a talk previously on pensions and that was said as well. The earlier the Mekare LPA, then the better. But you can change it, as Harish Bhai said. You can change it. But the earlier you do it, when you've got your mental capacity, that's better. Okay, Kanchanben actually agreed with what you said about on her note as well. I'll just move to
good. I'll pass. I can be a doctor now, because sometimes I wake up and I'm a false doctor, even after so many years.
That's fine. Yeah, her dad's suffered a heart attack. So, okay. So the next one is from Dr. Bai. Very informative. Thank you. My aunt has dementia. Sometimes she becomes sullen and quiet, as you mentioned. Is it the case that she could understand us at this time, but unable to express herself? Or is it the case that she's just not able to register what I'm saying?
It's all the above. Okay. It could be that her mind is racing elsewhere. Okay, first of all, and she's not registering what you're saying. All right. Okay. It could be that she doesn't understand what you're saying. So it depends how you say it. So if you say it slowly, all right? She may understand it, all right, in simple language. So it could be everything. So what he's experiencing there, Kanchana, is all the true things, all right? So you need to get that person out of that mode, because it's a vicious circle, it goes around in circles, all right? The more you say, the less they understand. The more you say, the less they understand. So you might want to say, well, let's do something together. What would you like to do? Right? You give them the opportunity. Rather than say, let's go outside and go for a meal, or let's go for a walk. You want to say, what would you like to do? Give them a choice as well, all right? Should we go for a walk, or shall we play cards? All right. So we're trying to get them out of it. So Kanchana, the trouble is, it's very difficult to know, because the other thing that happens with dementia is they can also get depressed. They can also get depressed. All right. So you'd have to clinically judge that by a doctor to see whether there's depression within the dementia, and that may need treatment on its own. Hello.
Okay. So the variety of questions is important.
Yeah, the variety is question different, and give them, and I'd make it sort of activity with the use of brain. You got to think laterally and say, look, I'm not just going to give her the book to read, Gayatri Mantra or whatever. Don't bhajani book. Give something different, something that's going to stimulate the brain. One of the common things I think I remember doing with my father is getting old albums out. Who's this? Who's that? He'll remember everything from 1964 or 63 when we were in South Africa, but he wouldn't remember what happened 3 years ago. Right, so that sort of thing.
Okay. The next question is from Yogesh Bhai from Luton. What type of tests can we request?
All right. So first of all, don't go to the GP and say, I want a scan. Okay. By and large, unless someone's got other conditions such as a brain tumor or something, by and large, it's totally unhelpful. All right. And in the present climate with a pandemic, you will not get a scan that quickly. All right. But sometimes the consultants and even the GPs refer them for scans. It can be quite a long time at the moment. All right. Purely because the logistics, there was a queue before the pandemic and there's queues now. And every time a patient goes into a scanning room, they have to clean the room. So instead of doing 6 scans a day, they can only do 2 scans a day. So the waiting lists are longer. What you can request from the GP is, first of all, a simple examination. The 30 questions I said, what we call the MMSE, Mini Mental System Examination. All right. And there are 30 questions which I ask routinely, both in English and in Gujarati. And the second thing I do is something called a MOCA test, MOCA, Montreal test. All right. It's a cognitive test. All right. And again, they'd have drawings and they're going to do this and this, but the patient needs to understand and the doctor needs time. For me to do a dementia examination, a minimum of half an hour. All right. The GPs are going to give you 10 minutes and give you an antibiotic and you disappear. Well, you don't want that. You want a proper examination, make a double appointment. Test you can request a blood test. So you want a blood count, you want a liver test, a kidney test, a thyroid test, some vitamin tests like B12, vitamin D, as a bare basics. Now, you'll be shocked what else I do. All right. I also do routinely HIV test, AIDS no test, HIV. And I also do routinely a syphilis test. All right. You'll be very surprised how many of our Asian businessmen who've gone over to Thailand and Bangkok and Vietnam and Singapore and India, and they've had a good time there, and then bring these diseases in. I'm not joking. I have seen it, all right? And they bring HIV. If you came to me in 1982, I'd have to get permission from you to do HIV. I no longer need to do an HIV test. I just do it because I need to find out whether that's related to dementia. It's one of the 200 causes of dementia. So I just do it. So we do those sort of tests routinely. That's the basics. Does that help you?
Thank you. So another question from Ramila Ben Choksi is dementia, Parkinson's, and is it Lewy body related?
Right, Lewy body.
Okay.
Right. So they're all different, right? So Parkinson's disease is due to something called dopamine in the brain and lack of it at a junction. All right. So what happens in Parkinson's disease is, I'm moving my arm like this nice and smoothly. So they have difficulty. It's like, if you look at it's like this, it's jaggedy, all right? I can't move it straight because the muscles are relaxing and contracting at a difficult time. Same thing happens with the walking. So instead of walking smoothly like we do, they start walking and they go really fast and they fall over. And that's because of a lack of chemical in the brain. Lewy body Alzheimer's and some other types of dementia is because there's an abnormal protein in the brain, and it destroys some of the brain cells in the brain, and then the communications within the brain systems, like the electricity wiring, and that's what gives you the symptoms of the. So they're different conditions totally, and that's, you know, Lewy body, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. They're one of the 200 or more causes of dementia.
Okay, thank you. We've still got quite a few questions. Harish.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
I'm free all night today.
Yeah, that's fine. Good. No, very good questions as well.
Yeah, they're very good. I'm very impressed. Very intelligent crowd today.
Yeah. So does cooking in aluminium vessels cause dementia?
Really good question. Very good question. There was evidence many years ago that aluminium causes it, all right? And especially Asians, we used to cook it. But I think that's been poo-pooed. There was many studies since then, so it's not. But I think most people have stopped using that. I think most of us don't use aluminium utensils anymore. It's either Pyrex or glass or steel, or, you know, there's non-stick stuff we use, creosote or whatever. So there was an issue in Cornwall maybe about 25 years ago when they ditched some chemicals from a factory, and the reservoir was poisoned with aluminium residue there. But I don't think there's an increased risk of dementia in Cornwall at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Manubai, for that question. Next one is from Dinesh Bhai. He says, I believe music helps as well to prolong dementia as it stimulates your brain.
Prolong dementia or reduce the risk of progress. Excellent. All right. Now people hum to the music, they sing to the music, and it's actually triggering their brain. So it's a good idea. All right. So very good question. I think music is really good. You may have seen people. I live in London, so there are sort of pianos at certain venues such as St. Pancras Station. So every now and then a person who's walking in the streets will come and play the most beautiful music, all right? And they've got dementia, and they just go along and walk and sleep in the streets. So that's a really good question. So different types of music is even better, all right? You know, different types of music. I mean, if you come and sit in my car, I'll be listening to, you know, the latest thing I'm listening to is Meatloaf, you know, Eat Out of Hell, you know, if you like that sort of music. Or this morning it was the classical music in my car. So or the other day I was listening to Gayatri Mantra and, you know, bhajans and things. So just vary it, you know, it's different, all right? So rather than just listening to Radio 4 and Radio 4, Radio 1 and Radio 2, Magic, Smooth, Asian, UK, you know, that sort of thing. So to use different music. Yeah, excellent question. Excellent.
Okay. From a question from Wenz, how quickly does the symptoms worsen, i.e. months or years?
Okay, majority of the people, it's usually slowly, but there are a small proportion of the people, especially the younger one, they can progress quite quickly, all right? For instance, my father, I knew when we were in India, he was developing in 1988, but by the time the year 2000 or 1999 came, 11, 12 years later, it was quite profound. You know, there was no speech, there was no swallowing, you know, he was wasting away. So it can be very slow as well, the vascular type. I think he had the vascular type, whereas the young person's type, where the protein in the brain is destroying this thing, can be quite progressive, all right? And that's why if you go to the doctor early when you're getting symptoms, the doctor can do the test and say, look, there's nothing wrong, it's normal to forget, but if it's happening recurrently, get it done. Because if they get those tablets, you know, 2 different types of tablets, it can slow it down for a few years. Not a cure, but slow it down. I mean, when I first started prescribing those drugs, the consultant recommends a GP prescribe it, it was about 1 year. But now they're saying 2 to 3 years. So, you know, there may be new drugs coming online. So I don't know.
Okay. Next question, is mobility stroke coordination impaired as dementia starts and progresses?
Yeah. Okay. So as I said to you earlier, the senses go, all right? So the way you stand, all right, and walk, we've got little sensors, in our joints, all right? So those sensory joint sensors, they go. So people then fall and they injure themselves. The more you stimulate those sensors, the better it is, all right? Again, looking after yourself, blood pressure, diabetes and everything, all of those things will get rid of the sensors. But if the patient, if the person is helped to walk, you go for walks with them, it'll help with their sensors to stay alive, all right, the longer, all right. You know, in this country, when people get fractured neck or femur, it's the hip bone that's fractured, it costs this country £2 billion a year, okay? And if you're over the age of 85, it is unlikely you'll come back to your home. Now, you can prevent that in a person with who is living with dementia, and you can prevent this by getting them for a little walk around the block. You don't have to go miles, you don't have to go in the gym, go around the block, you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, increase it. So, you know, those sensors will stay alive to them.
And a similar question from Deepika. Hello, please advise how to encourage a patient to go out or do some sort of exercise when not motivated at all.
Right, this needs all your skills, your love, your attention, how you talk to the person. And as I said to you earlier about giving them choices, right? Giving them choices. You don't have to go out. You know, it depends how big your garden is. Walk in the garden. You might go and look at the birds in the garden, look at the trees, there might be fruit in the garden, flowers in the garden. All right, no flowers now, but in a few weeks we'll get flowers and things. Walk around the garden, all right? Encourage them, walk with them, hold their hand, all right? There's no shame in holding an old person's or a person with dementia's hand. In fact, they like it, you know, squeeze their hand because they'll feel the sensation that someone loves me, all right? The no physical contact with a person who is living with dementia means that, you know, you're not connecting with them, because they connect with simple things like holding hands. They connect with talking, gentle words, not shouting words, all right? So they connect with that. So try those sort of things, simple things, all right? It's not easy, I can tell you that, been through it, it's not easy.
Okay, a couple of thank yous. And then another question from Binaben. My father-in-law has a vascular dementia. He hits his head and claps randomly. Why is that?
Okay. It could be vascular dementia is when the arteries get thinner, and as I was mentioning earlier, and the circulation is damaged, right? The brain shrinks over time. And these could be due to parts of the brain, all right? There are parts of the brain where they tell you when to eat, when to drink, etc. It could be part of the brain is destroyed where he is trying to feel pain and he can't feel pain, all right? It could be, as you've seen, people with mental health illness who bang their head against the wall. It's really difficult to control those sort of behavioral things. So these sort of behavioral things can be part of Alzheimer's and vascular as well. Very difficult. Clapping hands, making noises, making odd noises, you know, all that sort of thing. People do that. And it's again, they're losing their senses. They're just trying to trigger their brain. Very difficult to treat as well, because what sometimes doctors are asked to give is some really, really powerful drugs, you know, major tranquilizers. Now I try to stay away from them, because those are like putting a chemical straitjacket on people. You're not actually letting them live a life. I do use them. I'm not saying I don't use them, but it depends how bad they are. All right. So sometimes whoever asked that question, it is possible if it's actually they're hurting themselves by banging their heads, you might want the doctor to sort of break the cycle by giving a very short-term medication to break that cycle, all right? Because, you know, if you bang your head, you can get blood clots in and around the brain, not strokes, but it's called hematomas. And that can also cause more confusion. And then he doesn't know, or she doesn't know, why the confusion is getting worse, because they've damaged themselves.
Okay, thank you. So how is illusions helped in dementia from VS?
How is illusions?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I mentioned earlier, one of the causes of dementia could be, one of the causes that's mistaken with dementia is delirium, right? So if your body is overrun with an infection, you get delirium, right? Now in dementia, and usually with an older person, they sometimes get a sort of an infection. The commonest infection they get is actually in the urine, all right? Because either they haven't emptied the bladder regularly, and there's a collection of water and that gets infected. So they can get a bit of delirium, and they can get illusions. First of all, they see things, all right? They get visual hallucination. They can get sound hallucinations. They can get smell hallucinations, all right? Now, it also depends which part of the brain is affected with the dementia, and they can also give you the same thing, all right? Very difficult. If someone comes to me and says, look, she's seeing things or whatever, I will think of delirium. I will take their temperature, examine them. The first thing I'll want to check is check their urine. Either we can dipstick it in the surgery, or we can send a urine to the hospital and get the result the next day.
Okay, thank you. I'll just carry on with the chat. I know Monica Bachek, a few people have put their hands up.
Yeah, go on.
I'll
Carry on. How long have you got the thing for?
We've got the Zoom for a while, so
yeah, carry on. Let's just clarify.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just go through the chat first, but those with the hands on, I will come to them. So from Bhakti Ben, we take photos when we go for a walk, and then my husband, who has early stage of Alzheimer's, can have a look. Okay,
that is absolutely brilliant. All right, so really good thing to do. All right, there's a book written by, I've forgotten the lady's name, an English lady. All right, she's a writer, but she's also got Alzheimer's disease. She's about 60 odd now. And one of the things she does, I've forgotten her name, Nicholson or something. She does exactly that in her village somewhere in England. She goes out every day with her camera. I don't know whether it's a phone camera or proper camera. And they have the village Facebook group. All right. And everyone in the village knows that she's got dementia, although she's a writer. Some days she's good, some days. And she posts, or her daughter, two daughters who live quite close to her, they post all her pictures every day. All right. So she then goes onto the Facebook page. All right. This is something Prajapatis could do. You know, we could do it in Birmingham or Leicester, London. We could have a page where people put photos. I mean, you know, as long as they're decent photos, I mean, you know, that they do trees, birds, leaves, this, you know, and you know, let the people who have dementia, let them look at, encourage them to go out and do those photos. I think that's a brilliant idea, taking photographs. Superb idea. Very good.
Thank you, Bhakti Ben from Thornton Heath. A message from Ash. Hello, is it common for a dementia patient to have nightmares and hallucinations?
Right. As I answered earlier about delirium, nightmares and hallucinations are really, and that's part of the reason why they may sleep in the daytime and they wake up with a jolt, all right? And they pace up and down at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking the rest of the family up. And I talked about earlier about the disturbance to the whole family, especially if you've got young children in the family, all right? And it does happen, all right? The answer to that is not drugs again, although we do use drugs in special circumstances, is make sure they don't catnap during the daytime. You know, you can't police that, all right? So if you're all at work and they're in the house on their own, all right, I'll talk about that in a second, being in the house, they're going to sit there in front of the television or something and they'll fall asleep, all right? But if you're at home, help them out. Don't let them sleep. Talking about if they're on their own, my father used to be and he used to open the door to strangers who walked past his house. Come in. He used to give out £20 notes to people, all right, in the street. He had a pocket full of £20 notes. And I used to say to him, why have you got £20 notes in your pocket? Oh, someone told me, i.e. his condition, dementia, that if you leave the money in the bank, someone's stealing it from you. All right. So they do all this sort of odd behavior. And those are behavioral changes that really it's so difficult to control in police, but you just have to be one step ahead of them, you know. It's the nightmares could be anything, you know, it could be infection, it could be just them waking up, but it is very, very difficult to control the nighttime symptoms.
Okay, great, thank you. This is from Pralin in Birmingham, who's our treasurer actually, and Birmingham president. Is a lack of B12 cause of dementia?
It can do, all right. B12, vitamin B12 works in the brain and on the nerves as well, all right. So we don't see it that often, all right? But in sort of developing countries, we do see that, all right? But if you ask the GP for a blood test, and if they're deficient, the GPs, depending on which GP it is, they can either suggest you go and buy some vitamin B12 tablets called cyanocobalamin, 50 milligrams from the chemist. My preferred way is to give them injections. You know, I give them 5 loading doses of 1 every 3 months. They just get off my back and they see the nurse, and 4 injections a year will keep them. Sure. It can be an early symptom of dementia, and I think it may stop progression if it's a neurological condition that's causing dementia. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is from Varshaben Kumari. Varshaben, is it from London? I think our Assistant Secretary. Namaste, Dr. Harish Bhai. What can be done in the younger years to prevent or delay the onset of dementia? Okay, really good question. All right. So this is beyond thinking about dementia. Hey, look, we as I said to you quite early on, that we all live a very charmed life in this country compared to what people do in India or Africa. You know, they slog their days off
in the fields or wherever they were. And if you look at me, when I go to India, I stand out a mile because I've got a tummy. But most Indian people in India are extremely skinny. They work very hard. All right. So one of the things we really need to do is to increase the exercise. All right. And you'll say, well, how much do we need to do? On average, my feeling is, I mean, people have watches and they do 10,000 steps a day. Yeah, you can. But what I would suggest you do at least 20 minutes of exercise a day. So if you walk from, I don't know, from my house to that first shop, normally it can take you half an hour. Try and do it in 25 minutes, 22 minutes. Walk a bit fast, let your heart race. The harder the heart races, the more circulation goes to the brain, the more your neurons are stimulated, etc. All right, so younger people, first of all, exercise, all right? Encourage them to play football, cricket, or whatever they want to do. Encourage them to go for a run. You know, if you're middle-aged, I wouldn't encourage you to go for a run, go for a walk. The chances are, if you're middle-aged and you go for a run, it is unlikely you'll be coming home for your chapatis. You'll be dead on the floor somewhere in the street. All right, you'll be dead because you'll have a heart attack. You're not used to exercise. Don't do it. All right, start walking first. Do the walking first, and then it's the diet. All right, cut out what we call oily foods. All right, fried foods, oily foods. Too many carbohydrates. So when I say carbohydrates, I mean potatoes, batata, rice, dal, chapatis, pasta, right? That sort of food, all right? So cut out those food. Foods high in cholesterol are things like solid hard cheese, cheddar cheese. Go for low-fat cottage cheese, very low. The difference for 100 grams of solid cheddar cheese is 30 grams of that is solid cholesterol. Low-fat cottage cheese is 0.1 gram in 100 grams, all right? So that's the difference. So think, Edam cheese is about 25 grams per 100 grams. Think about fruits, all right? When you eat fruit, everybody eats fruit. Right? I've got a whole bowl full of fruit. Cut out grapes, very sweet. Cut out bananas, all right? 9 grapes is a portion, but it's full of sugar. Go for the berries, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. A portion about that big, okay? Weigh it out in your kitchen scale. 28 grams in weight has got about 4 grams of sugar, compared to same weight of grapes will have about 4 or 5 times that. So go for berries, all right? Apples are fine, oranges are fine, that sort of thing. All right?
The whole of
Okay, thank you. So this is just a request. Is there an email from Anita and Jitendra from Canada, actually? Is there an email contact we can send questions to? I think the SBA UK probably is.
Yeah, it's just SBA UK, and then we'll go. I don't want to be inundated. I've just got a message that my Microsoft Outlook is completely full.
Yeah.
Forward to me. I can pass.
No, that you're busy. Okay, so we've got quite a few more questions. Why are women more likely to get dementia than men, from Kishore Mistry?
Many, you know, it's really difficult to say, because I think I'm not saying that it could be the genetics, all right? It also is one of the things that's possible. I mean, I don't know. I need to, maybe it's a learning need for me. Does the middle-age reduction in hormones at menopause, all right, estrogens and progesterone, if the hormones go down, women go through something called menopause, when the periods stop, etc. It could be that, because you know you need those hormones to trigger your brain as well. All right, so it is possible that triggers it off. It is also possible, one of the things that happen is women are potentially thought they get less heart disease. The reason they get less heart disease is because it's undiagnosed. All right, people, you see a thin Asian lady or a thin white lady, and you think it's unlikely they're going to have a heart attack. If they get pain, they probably may have heart disease. All right, so it's probably underdiagnosed that they've got an underlying condition like diabetes and things. All right, so it is possible there could be all sorts of reasons. Nothing specific there.
Okay. From Hansa Ben Mistry, can yoga and Ayurvedic medicine help control dementia?
Oh, no, I'm trained in London, all right, so I can't comment on alternative medicine. I usually get people to stay away from it, all right. I'm not trained in it. What I have known when I've seen patients who bring all sorts of funny medicines from Navsari or wherever they've been to, is sometimes they have chemicals which are like steroids and other things. Now, they can make you better in the short term, but in the long term, I don't know. I'm not trained in that sort of medicine. Whereas yoga, exercises and things is probably good for you. You know, that Ramdev who used to do the stomach exercise on channel 888, well, do it. You know, I have no problem with those. But with medicines from abroad, I'm not really an expert in that. I really don't know.
Okay, next up, I think Yogesh Bhai from Luton. I think it's our Yogesh Bhai president from Luton. Beta amyloid plaques cause dementia. Is there any other treatments on this? Thank you.
Right. So once you get those plaque disease, all right. So that we don't specifically know what this plaque disease is. All right. Once we know what the plaque disease is, how they form, or what triggers the form, we'll have a ready-made treatment. All right. Now, I can only tell you that the way we've advanced in cancer treatment, right, we have what we call now biochemical agents, right? They're not chemotherapy. They're something called biological agents. I think it may not be in our lifetime, but in years to come, there will be biological agents that will prevent this, all right, the plaque formation. He's absolutely right, the plaque, and that destroys the nerves in the brain, the plaque disease. All right. But I think it will come in the end. But at the moment, we don't know. All we know that all these things can be triggered off by alcohol, brain injury, other diseases, smoking, etc. So if you can keep away from them and carry on exercising, it's about as good as it's going to get.
Okay, I think a few more thank yous. This is a nice one from Champak by Fakir. Since your session is excellent, thoroughly enjoyed session and learned quite a lot. Wish we would have this type of session in 2008 when my mother was diagnosed with dementia. Our life took a major turn. It took us a long time to understand and cope with my mother's dementia. So yeah, I mean, it's 2008 is a long time ago. We wish that Dr. Harish Bhai was there, but
well,
sure, yeah.
I will tell you, Kamlesh, the Prajapati UK in London didn't understand that. All right, in Harrow, and there was a chap from Watford, Harish, my namesake, and I wrote him a shirty letter, very shirty letter, that he didn't understand what dementia was, especially when my name was mentioned at a Samaj meeting that I was mistreating my father. Hurtful, very hurtful, but you know, I'm strong enough. I can take it on my chin. So I'm sorry it wasn't there, but you know, I've learned through difficult times, and I'm treating many patients with dementia that actually it's a horrible disease. Yeah. And I know what people are going to go through as soon as they hear the word dementia. You know, it resonates with me.
Yeah. And hopefully we SBA by putting these sessions on can help as well.
Yeah, of course.
Let's carry on. So thank you from Dinesh. Thank you very much for a wonderful session. Greatly appreciated. My Anita and Jitendra again. My dad would like to know how long dementia lasts, until what age? Right.
Okay. So from my personal case, my father had dementia for, I think, a good 13 years. All right. Okay. Some people have the younger ones are very progressive and rapid ones, and you will know because within a year or two. But to prevent that escalating, getting faster and faster, if you start doing more and more exercise, looking after your diet, you know, as I say to you, sometimes you have to be cruel. Like, you know, let them put their zip on if they don't know how to do it. Let them put their coat on. See how they do it. Teach them. Don't take it away. Don't make them disabled that they can't do it. Because if you do things for them, they won't learn how to do it themselves. Yeah. So it's very, the more active you are, the chances are the longer it'll take. Okay, thank you. From Hasmat Bhai. Okay. Next, how do you handle intense false beliefs and hallucinations with mixed dementia, Alzheimer's and vascular? Delirium has been checked and it's not that. Risperidone and memantine has been prescribed, but the particular false belief is really real. So, sorry, Kamlesh, you slightly cracked it. I heard the memantine bit. I didn't hear the previous bit. Yes. So it goes, how do you handle intense false beliefs and hallucinations with mixed dementia, Alzheimer's and vascular? Delirium has been checked and it's not that. Risperidone, yeah, and memantine has been prescribed, but the particular false belief is really real. Okay, right. False beliefs are sort of a mixture, all right? So that's a mixture of probably dementia and probably bits of mental health, all right? And that's why this patient is on something called risperidone, which is a major tranquilizer, all right? It's an antipsychotic medication. It's not a smartie, it's a very powerful drug, all right? It can also help people sleep at night. Now, memantine is one of the type of drugs we use, and sometimes it's used in conjunction with other group of drugs that they call the anticholinesterase, things like donepezil and one or two others. The anticholinesterase, they increase the amount of chemical at a junction in the brain. In memantine, it blocks another chemical, so they work in a slightly different manner. So the two types of dementia drugs, the anticholinesterase and memantine, can sometimes be given together to help control some of these symptoms. All right. Now, it's not something that a GP will do. All right. Because we are told what to prescribe, and we may start prescribing it, but you may need specialist advice. And to give a dementia person some risperidone, you must have a specialist involved, or a very specialized GP who knows why they're giving to, sometimes I give drugs to patients, even strong as risperidone or other drugs, not because it's going to make them better. It's going to ease their symptoms, to calm them down, to help the family, to keep the patient at home. All right. It's for us as GPs, it's a balancing act. There's no hard and fast rules about these things. All right. So, but it's a difficult one. If they're on those drugs, yeah, difficult.
Okay. Thank you from Wenz. From question Vyas, is it okay to take Divya Meda Vati with dementia?
I'm not sure. How do you spell that?
Divya is spelled D-I-V-Y-A. Meda is M-E-D-H-A. Vati is V-A-T-I.
Homeopathic medicine. Sorry, no idea what it is.
That's herbal medicine. From Vipul, if anybody wants to send any questions, please direct us to SBA UK, which is the website. The email address is sbasecretaryuk@gmail.com. So, but if tame koi apra committee member mene janaso, and we will take your questions and pass them on to Harish Bhai, or we will answer them as well. Okay, from Wendy Mitchell written a book called What I Wish People Knew About Dementia. So okay, so I guess that is the same.
Yeah, there are lots of books, right? And I sent you something yesterday. It's in Gujarati. I mean, you could send it to people if you got their email. It's really quite good information from Dementia UK.
Yeah. Okay, so we will send that leaflet through the branches. They can distribute it. From Vershaben, would there be an online test we can do for dementia?
At the moment, there's nothing. All right, there's nothing. I wouldn't suggest you go. I mean, if the test I suggested earlier, blood count, liver, kidney, HIV, and thyroid, and this, if you do that privately, it'll put you back a minimum of £500. Go to the GP and get it done. You're entitled to National Health Service care. Maybe a bit of a wait, and it's not going to make any difference to the program. All right, so go to the GP and get those done. Don't do it privately, please, unless you've got lots of money, or you can transfer all that money to my pension.
Well, I've been
an NHS GP doctor for 40 years now. I'm okay, totally okay for the NHS.
Okay, thank you. The questions keep coming. It's fantastic. Okay, does autoimmune cause dementia?
Yeah, right. Really good question. Autoimmune basically means that tamari body ma ek chemical banao and tamari body anything destroy the jai. All right. So there are so many autoimmune diseases: thyroid disease, diabetes, type 1 diabetes. Right. So when you become diabetic, there are two types of diabetes: type 1 and type 2. Sometimes type 1 is called autoimmune. That means you destroy your pancreas. All right. There's arthritis. So if you get chronic disease like rheumatoid arthritis, those antibodies destroy your joints. There is no reason why they don't destroy other parts of the brain. So any chronic disease, any autoimmune disease is a chronic disease. So any chronic disease can have a deleterious effect on your brain, totally. So you have to be, if you've got autoimmune disease, go to the doctors, make sure you're under a specialist if it's not GP treatable, and they're under specialist treatment. And these diseases are well treated now with the biologic agents, all right?
Okay, thank you. There's still a few more questions. Just 1 minute, Harish Bhai, is if I can just mention, we'll carry on with the questions because it's really important. As long as Harish Bhai is here,
Yep, carry on.
મને એટલું જ કહેવું છે before other people leave, because અમારા છે ને SP UK, we are doing other sessions as well. So આજે હરીશભાઈ છે, but in a few weeks time we've also arranged a lady, Apra Prajapati, a mental and health nurse, to come on as well. So we will send out with the flyers up to branches ne. So please join karjo. Okay, and we will do more sessions like this as well. I think it's really, I mean, from what we are getting the questions today, the most questions we've ever had, I think it's really an important topic and stuff. Okay, from Suraj, but how can you find out if you are going down to getting dementia? I am 72, forgot names, where I put items, numbers, passwords, etc. Please, really would appreciate as I live on my own. Yeah.
Okay. Password is really difficult, right? I'm always forgetting passwords because I've got passwords for every walk of my life, from computers to my bank accounts to saving accounts. So it's a really difficult one, right? So what I tend to do is I have a sequence of passwords, so I don't lose it, all right? I'm not saying you suggest you do that, all right? So, you know, if I have something like Rumpelstiltskin, then I might put 101, 0001, something like that. And it progresses next time, so I don't forget that easily. All right. You forget your keys. If it's happening more and more, and it's becoming a disability for you, and I know you live on your own, you said, perhaps go to the GP and say, do you think I should have some tests, like a thyroid test, anemia test, B12 test, to see there is a cause for my, he won't like it. Well, you know, so to him, you know, you won't like it, but you're the person, you're the main person in that doctor's room, not the GP or his bank or whatever. You have to find out. And a good GP will say to you, okay, let's do the test. And they'll do those 30-point tests, you know, say the MOCA test or the MMSE test. And if you're okay on that, if you score more than 26 on it, you're okay. If you get less than 26, well, you may be wavering. And then if you've got less than 26, then the GP should really say, well, let's get more specialized consultant get involved. Because if you get early at that stage, then the medication would help you, you know, the anticholinesterase or the memantidine type drugs. Yeah. So if you think it's becoming more and more difficult, get it checked.
Okay. Thank you from Hemant by a very informative presentation needed for our community and a better understanding of this illness. A question from Suraj Bhai. Can you put it on the chat, please? There is a question. Okay. Excellent explanation on dementia, Harish Bhai. Thank you. From Tundan Ben, Anita and Jitendra Bhai. Dr. Here is saying that prescribed medicines don't really work for dementia. Is that true? Mom is 89 and starting to forget people, own grandchildren, own daughter, etc. But family doctor says not much can be done to slow this dementia.
Really difficult one, because what we do know that if someone is getting and has been properly diagnosed to have any type of dementia, early treatment can slow it down for 2 to 3 years. That's the maximum, all right? It's not going to stop it. There's no cure for it yet, all right? So one of the things you might want to use as an argument with the GP, say, well, yeah, I know, but there's plenty of evidence to say it works for 1 to 2 years. I want my loved ones to communicate with me for the next 2 to 3 years. That's okay. I understand there's no long-term program. So what we used to do, I think it's happened less and less now, we used to do the test every 6 months. There comes a time when the test gets worse. And that's when we stop the tablets. It's pointless after that, because these are expensive drugs. They're not cheap. So say to your doctor, look, let's do the test today. Give her the medication through the specialist. Repeat the test in 6 months. If it's made no difference at all and she's getting worse, stop it. He's there to help you, the GP, not be against you.
Okay. So similar question. So what would you ask the GP for these tests from Suraj Bhai?
Well, as I said earlier, just blood test, blood count, liver, kidney, thyroid, anemia, iron, B12, vitamin D. And I would say, as I said earlier, HIV and syphilis test.
A question from gentleman said, is there any leaflets on dementia available in Hindi? I think it's the one you done was for Gujarati, is in Gujarati, no, Harish Bhai? The leaflet.
Gujarati, yeah. The one I sent you is in Gujarati, yeah. There are English, Punjabi, Hindi, any language. You can get it in any Dementia UK. But that one I sent you is in Gujarati.
Yeah, Chandraman, if you can leave your email address or send it to UK, we will send you a leaflet in Gujarati. Can diabetes be reversed from KM?
Really good question. Okay, there's a professor in Newcastle, Professor Walker. He has reversed diabetes. All right. Now there are two types of diabetes. Well, there are more than two types, but the two major types: type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is from day one you don't have insulin. So if you suddenly finish your insulin in your body, all right, within 2 or 3 days, if you don't have insulin, you'll be dead. All right. You will drink lots of water, you'll suddenly lose lots of weight, and you will become comatose. Your sugar will be so high. You get into hospital and they suddenly start putting you on insulin, and you will be good. All right. Now that diabetes is not inherited. Type 2 diabetes is inherited, which is what majority of the people get. Now, Professor Walker, sorry, not Walker, Professor Roy Taylor in Newcastle, Google him. He has reverse diabetes. He puts people on less than 800 calories a day diet. All right. And he has stopped people. So there's a test called Hemoglobin A1c that measures your sugar level for the last 3 months. Okay. If you're over 47, you're diabetic. That's the criteria. Now, he has reduced people and taken them off their drugs when he's reduced their hemoglobin A1c to less than 40. Now, that sort of medication can come in powder form. And if you ask your GP, they can refer you to some clinics where you can potentially get that on prescription. Not every area has got that yet. All right. Now, it's a very strange diet, all right? Usually powder form, and it's very low. You can do it at home. Stick to vegetables, cut out the oil, steam your vegetables, don't cook them in oil, cut out potatoes, exercise, and you can reduce the A1c. If your level, I'm not saying that you should, but if your level becomes less than 40, then you're practically reversed your diabetes, and then you're going to watch it. The trouble is when you lose that much weight over so many weeks or whatever, as soon as you start eating butter and shak or bhajiyas, or, once you start eating, it escalates, back to square one.
Okay, thank you. From Hemant Bhai Watford, can we have a report or copy of this recording of this seminar? Yes, Hemant Bhai. Mr. Karana Cheke, we're going to put this on our SBA Sri Prajapati UK website. Jojo, and the recording will be available there in a few days' time, hopefully. That will, so everybody can do it as well. Okay. Thank you from Suraj Bhai. Dementia Mistry, are there any dementia-friendly places, activities we can take dementia patients that may give respite for the carer and also give the dementia patient motivation to take part in things?
So which area is Vanita Ben from?
She doesn't say.
Vanita Ben, which area are you from?
If you're on, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, not to worry.
Yeah, okay.
Not to worry.
Yeah.
Every area has day centers, all right? They come in a blue van, and they can take your relative if they fit the criteria from the council. It's all run by council. You don't have to pay for that. And they take them in the morning at 9 o'clock. My father had to do this in the early stages of his dementia. And they'd bring home a couple of times at 4 o'clock in the evening, 5 o'clock. And at that dementia center, they would give them food. My father was lucky; they had Gujarati caterers there, so he had shak, rotli, quite warm food, hot food, etc. They do exercises, this sort of thing. Physiotherapists, they do sing song. Someone mentioned they pass the the beanbag around the group, pass the parcel type thing. They do puzzles. Someone talks to them. So there are centers that will help diffuse the situation, but you need to get in touch with your local council and say, can I have day center for a couple of days a week? It's probably unlikely you'll get it 5 days a week, but some people do, all right, because someone has to pay for it. So there are day centers that are, but it all depends on which area you live, what the funding is, and how much council has put towards it. But yes, there are, and you need that, all right? That will diffuse the home situation.
Okay, thank you. Thank yous from Nirmala Ben, Ramuben as well. Okay, from men's, what are the 2 tests called that we need to ask the GP? 30 questions.
One is the MMSE,
Yeah.
And the second one is MOCA. Now, it's a Canadian, the MOCA is a Canadian test. So I mean, I tend to do it because I tend to just to be a bit like the Irishman, to be sure. So I usually tend, and when I don't see patients at 10-minute intervals, I see them at 15-minute intervals. So if I make a double appointment, I've got 30 minutes in time. Not all GPs have the luxury, but I dictate my terms as a locum GP now. I don't go and do 10-minute appointments because I can't do that. By the time you say hello and see what was the score on Saturday at the Manchester United football game, my 4 minutes are up. So I need 15 minutes to do the thing. So it's those MMSE. Okay, it's a 30 questions in there, and they're both marked out of 30. All right, MOCA test, MOCA.
Thank you from C Mistry in London. Thank you again from Jitendra. Yeah, the audio tape will be available on ISBA website. So Vinita Ben was from London.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Vibhuva has posted the website address, which is www.prajapati.org.uk. Okay, www.prajapati.org.uk. Okay. So. Okay, Saraj Bhai goes, which area are you? Will join your surgery.
Right, well, you can't because I was a GP in Kenton in Harrow for 32 years. So when I was 60, I said, look, I've had enough of this. Otherwise we're going to lose all our young doctors. So I retired from there. Then I worked in Hatchen with a friend of mine who wanted to work with me for 30 years. He'd been telling me to work with him. So I said I'd come and join him for 6 months. And I ended up with his surgery until he retired at the age of 60. We were school friends. And he retired last summer. So in September, I said, look, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to do a locum. So I work in a surgery as a locum in North Harrow at the moment. But not every day. Not every day.
No, that's fine.
Not every day. I choose my time.
Harish Bagan from Watford. Is there any way we can find out what is the level of dementia within our community and by districts? Is there?
Well, look. There should be some data somewhere on the websites to see. First of all, but it is data collected accurately about race, religion, whatever. If it is, then we can. But I suspect it won't be too far from 1 in 70 to 1 in 100 in the community. All right. It doesn't stop any race, religion, color, what your gender is, what your sexuality is. Everyone gets it.
I think, yeah, it can affect everybody.
I'll look it out. I'll see if one of my clever GP friends could fish out that data if we can. But we'll have a look.
That's fine. I think Sonaj was saying he's so near you. So okay. Nirmala has separately, is there a session on autism as I feel that it's needed in our community?
I'm quite happy to do that. It's a really difficult one because my daughter has autism. All right, but she has autism at the far end. She's got Asperger's disease.
Okay.
All right. Asperger's in the sense that she's never failed an exam, and she's a graduate from Cambridge University, and that comes with problems with that as well. So we're all on the spectrum, all right. So whoever has posed that question, I must be on a spectrum. Kamlesh, you must be on a spectrum because we all have peculiarities, all right. If you think you're normal, well, you ain't. None of us is normal. We all have our peculiarities. Yeah, that's a good thing. So if you ever want something like that, we can work on that sometime.
Yeah, that was the last question on the chat. Many thank yous, Harish. But I think there was a hand up, Manubai. If you are on and you would like to ask a question, I know you raised your hand. Apologies, just unmute yourself. Okay, maybe not. That's fine. Okay, I think nearly 9:45. Thank you, Harish Bhai.
Not a problem. Not
I
a problem.
just wanted to Harish Bhai actually is my relative. Your dad, Mara Fuaji Tatane and boy. So first of all, I do remember Fuaji, even later, my dad of Tegya 93. So some of the peculiarities now make sense to me.
Yes.
When I come up with that, like 30, then I realize and stuff. But it's a topic that's obviously dear to your heart. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your professional opinion as well as your personal views and stuff.
Yeah, and Kamlesh, if we're only clever in hindsight, if we can only predict the future,
Yeah.
Mystery's portion, I could be a multimillionaire by now.
We miss Rajan, and we miss Foy was one of the most lovely boys I've ever met. So, God bless them. And thank you. And Avichane, we would hopefully we can utilize you again and do sessions.
Yeah, feel free.
Thank you all for joining, Ajay. We will do more sessions. I mean, week my mental health session karwana, and then hopefully we can arrange something with Harish Bhai as well, and hopefully.
Who's that Saroj Mistry? Who's Saroj Mistry? She's guessed it where I am. I think I know Saroj.
It's Shah.
It's
Is that Saroj?
Mrs. He's been calling me by. Yeah, I am sorry. Yes, I used to be a social worker. I used to bring my clients to Dr. Lloyd, was a very good friend of mine. Yes. Very good friend, very close friend.
Well,
so when he said North Harrow, so I can't join Lloyd. Sorry, I can't join Ridgeway.
Well, I'm working
because I'm with St. Peters.
I'm working with David at the moment. I've known him 35 years.
He's a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy. Yeah.
Okay.
A bit lunatic, but he's a lovely guy. Sorry.
No, Ben, don't worry.
Very nice person. Because I had a group of 8 people in a residential home with learning disability, and all our clients went there for many years. Now it's closed down, and I've been retired. But I would love to chat with you because I have lots of issues that would really help in a way, Harish Bhai.
Good. Yeah.
Email. I don't know how to contact you.
Put it through, what's his name?
Through
Sarojben, put it through SPL UK, the address that has been given to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much for a great session, guys.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Last but not least, I'd just like to thank you, Harish Bhai, but also my administrator, Vipul Bhai, and just Ben, last words, if you want any words to say, and then we will wrap up.
Thank you, Harish Bhai, as always there to help out. He's also helped out in my London sessions, and long way back neighbor. Thank you.
Nairobi.
That's right. Vipul Bhai, over to you.
Yeah, Harish, I just want to say thank you very much. Very, very interesting session, and hope people have gone away and learnt quite a bit about dementia, what dementia is. So thank you so much, and hopefully we'll have another session again about that in the near future.
Well, Vipul, I hope they all thought it was informative. And that's my aim. It wasn't for propagating myself. As I said, I'm almost the sell-by date of a GP, but I'm just giving you my wisdom or from experience, really, nothing more than that.
Well, it was informative to me anyway. So, brilliant.
Good.
We've got you now, Harish Bhai. Please, I'm not going to let you go now.
You got a carbon copy of